Hi there, and welcome to the 42nd episode of Career Stories Live. So today I'm joined by Varshaa Raturi Thapliyal. Hopefully I've said your name correctly, Varsha. Thank you. Military and corporate leadership resume writer. So welcome, Varsha. Thank you very much for joining me. So Varsha and I connected on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, which I think it was after a live that I'd run with maybe Jeff Young, and you got in touch and just gave me some really lovely feedback. So we connected, and it's been really great to get to know you over your posts over the couple of years. So as always, please do comment to let us know that you're here, where you're joining from. Feel free to ask any questions you've got, share your experience in the comments. And if you're watching on a replay, then please do leave some comments and we'll go back and answer them. So I've seen that we've already got someone watching. So Jeff, welcome, Jeff. So he's saying, greetings, Sarah and Varsha. He's toasting us with his first cup of coffee of the day. So, thank you, Jeff. And I think that's actually where we got our introduction from, wasn't it, Varsha, through Jeff?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, and John Asperian. So that's nice. So we're both in John's Friday Shout Out Club as well, aren't we? So that's great to have another mutual connection. So thanks, John, for joining. Okay, so basis for the lives for anyone that hasn't watched before. So I've always been really interested in what people do and why they do it, like learning about different roles and career paths. And the aim really is to give people advice and information on where they can source information. And my guests each week will always share some of their career tips. So we'll go over to you, Varsha. Can you give us a brief intro to what you do and what it is you're doing right now?
Thanks, Sarah. First of all, thank you for having me on the live. And it's been a while that I've spoken to somebody, but then it's interesting, and I'm delighted to be talking about my career story because what I did in the corporate space is a 360 different, is absolutely 360 different from what I'm doing today. And today I'm a corporate professional turned solopreneur. I work with transitioning military and corporate leaders to put their resumes together.
Okay, excellent. And we'll definitely talk a bit more about that later on. As you said, we'll talk about how you move from the corporate world into that. So we'll go to early careers. So did you have a job whilst you were at school or college? And if you did, has that helped you?
Oh, well, the education system in India is a little different. So we have very standard two boards, the 10th and the 12th grade. And I'll say that I was a little naive. I didn't really research on what I'd like to do. And I
Okay.
just did what I got in school, and I did fine. After that, I studied in college. And during the college, what got into me was that, the aim was there that I want to do something. But what that something was, I never really researched about it. And the idea was to get a job, get a salary, and get going with the work life and everything. And I'm being really authentic and honest about how it all went.
Yeah.
And so I studied in college, and then just when I finished my graduation, I started giving interviews. And at that point in time, the customer service executive roles were really common. And
Like,
so I passed college, gave an interview, you know cracked a deal with an organization and started working. So I started working really early in my career. So I think I was 21 when I started my first corporate job. And then, from customer service executive to team leader and so on and so forth to a managerial level. But I didn't really think back that what exactly should I be doing? Am I doing the right thing? And is this what is made for me? Is it the
yeah.
right thing I should be doing as per my skill set? So I never really gave that thought. Today, when I think back, I kind of think that I should have taken more time to think deep into what exactly should I be doing and then upskill myself accordingly. So I gave life, as life came, I kept dealing with it. And what I learned was exposure because I went out from home and did it all by myself and never looked back that way. But
Mm.
then my corporate life was more of something that I never really was best at, as in I
Yeah.
wasn't happy really doing what I was doing, but I still was I made a deal out of it, so I gave my best. But then today what I'm doing is absolutely 360-degree different from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
learning that I've taken from there is that always research that where is it that you'd like to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But I think I've had a couple of people on who have said that actually sometimes it's almost good to not know what you want to do and just try things. And then you learn as much from what it is you didn't like as what you did like. So I think that's probably a good way to look at it as well. And I think, in all honesty, most people in their first jobs don't really know what they want to do they? So it's really
I think
great that you've been so honest about that.
I think it's in your early 30s that you realize that what you're doing is not meant for you and you should be soon doing something else. And that pivoting is actually tough. It's not easy. And take that call at that point, at the right point in time, is kind of a little fishy thing to do. So that's why
Yeah.
the deal is.
Yeah, okay. So just go back a bit to university. So what did you study at university, and how did you decide what course? Did you know what you wanted to do then? Or
So I've already said in two bits that I what I did was actually not meant for me. So I was a
yeah,
commerce student all throughout. So I
yeah,
did my graduation in commerce, and then I moved into customer service.
yeah.
And while I was working, I did my MBA in marketing.
Oh
But
wow, okay.
customer service somehow did bring weave into marketing, did weave marketing into it, but then not really something that I enjoyed. So I'm not a marketing person at all, and didn't really apply all the learnings to my to the current job that I had at that point in time. But yeah, these are two very different things that I did. And yeah, so because what I studied and what I upskilled for wasn't really meant for me, because that wasn't something that I was looking for ahead in the future, which I did not see then. But later I
Yeah,
realized that all that I studied, I did study, but it was aimless, it was directionless. I did not give it a direction in the initial years. Had I
yeah,
upskill for something that I would have liked to do, then the passion would have been different. I was driven by
yeah.
authenticity. I was driven as a person. I'm driven because if I take up something, I will complete it to my best. But then the best would have been a different result altogether had it been driven by passion. Is what I feel.
Yeah, that's a good way of reflecting on it, isn't it? And okay, so you talked a bit about you starting your career in sort of customer experience. So can you remember how you got that role in the first place? Was it something you applied for? Was it linked to college in some way?
So first, because I wanted to get through a job, and there was a placement committee here that was set up in our own city, and I went for the interview. I put a resume together. If I were to look back at that resume today, I would probably tear it and throw it. So it was
Oh,
that.
really? Yeah,
But yeah, because for an executive, for a entry level executive, no one would really look at into the details of what is there in the resume apart from what you've done in school and college, and that
yeah,
you also talk about in the interview. So it did took prep. So it's not like I cleared the first interview. I gave a couple of rounds, and then I realized, no, this is not working. I haven't prepared for it, and then I got a book for myself. I've forgotten the name of the book, but I prepared myself for 15 days. I read that book, wrote answers to the questions that were there in the book. I prepared myself for it, and then after that, I cleared the interview.
yeah,
And so preparation is always the key, whether it's an online presentation that you're
yes,
doing or whether it's an interview. Preparation is the key. So that's how I started early in career. And once I got the job, then I because I am personally, I like to do as much as I can for a particular role, and there'll never be a chance that the reporting manager would come and tell me, and this is not done. So then I grew in the corporate space. I grew from one level to a different level in different roles and different
yeah.
domains, and yeah, so that's about it.
Yeah, that's good. And I saw on your LinkedIn profile you were operations manager at Hewitt Associates. So that looks like that's a bigger company. Is that something you enjoyed a bit more there?
Loveliest ever organization that I could ever
Oh,
work
really?
with. Really, the work culture, the people, and everything. Most of my friends today who've become personal from professional to personal today are from Heward. I love the organizations, the opportunities that Heward gave to me, and because I was in operations, and I also managed a lot of projects. And in the meantime, I did a Six Sigma green belt also
Oh,
during that
okay.
time.
Yeah.
It gave anybody who wanted to do additional things, it gave wings at that point in time. So that is one go-to organization that I would always love to talk about. So it was a lovely
Yeah.
experience.
It's great, isn't it, when you've got an organization like that, which I had as well, that you can look back on and think, actually, I learned so much from that organization. I got so many opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess you need to be the kind of person that's going to grab those opportunities, and that sounds like you were one of those people.
Not initially. So I grew up to that maturity that you need to ask for it. Nobody would come and
Yeah,
give it to you matter, you need
Yeah.
to ask for responsibilities. And once you
Yeah.
do, and there's never no looking back then. So I worked on
Yes.
another project because I asked for it, and then the manager also pushed me for things. Your manager would always look for new opportunities for you only when the manager knows that you want to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a
No,
two-way
that's
street.
true.
Yeah,
You need to let people know. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Okay. And then you had another role, and then you were at IBM. So again, another really big organization.
Oh yes, even with IBM, the only thing was because I'd taken a break in between because I haven't mentioned though, but I'm also a military spouse, and we move places every 2 years, and because of that, I had to leave a lot of corporates. Like Hewlett was one that I never wanted to leave, but because we had to move to another place, so I quit Hewlett, and then I joined IBM, and it was in a
Right.
different city. And adaptability and flexibility probably comes best to our children before us, and we take time to adjust to that. And my family are
Yes.
always more flexible than I am, probably for the same reason, because they've been moving since they were little. And
Yes.
so it was a part of moving to IBM was part of the plan, because we transitioned to a new city, and the setup was absolutely new. And but then when I switched to IBM, I realized that I will have to do something about it, because every 2 years nobody is going to give me a job. And even when I appeared for IBM, they asked me that, how long do you think you will be here? So then, I gave my answers. I told them that if I'm comfortable, I'll see how it goes. But
Mm.
the thing is, I did realize in my heart that this is something that I will have to work around, and look for
Yeah.
work from opportunities. So I started thinking at that point in time, and that's how
Yeah.
IBM is the last corporate stint that I had on
Right.
my
Okay.
resume.
Yeah. Okay. So you decided at that point then to start looking at something else, and that's when you then made the pivot into content writing and resume writing. Is that right?
Yeah, so I moved to content writing because always I had that spark of writing. So initially I used to write on Facebook, and everybody used to tell me that you write well, and people told me that you should write a blog, an article, or something. But in the corporate space, you never really have that time. So
Yes.
when I had the time, I started with content writing. I wrote for an e-magazine. They liked my articles, and I also like to click photographs. So photography is one passion I have when I get the time. So I use my
Mm.
photographs also at that point in time, and that's how content writing happened. And then during that phase, I also had a tie-up with two people who were writing resumes. So they had
Right.
I collaborated with them. One was military specific, and one was no corporate resumes.
Right.
And the one so I learned resume writing from there and understood what a resume needs, so on and so forth. But those were global resumes. Sorry, those were global resumes, not military as yet.
Right. Okay.
In the meantime, what happened was, because we have a lot of people who come home and ask you, what are you doing, ma'am? So when I used to say I'm writing resumes, and they would say, ma'am, please, can you write our resume also? And I tried a couple of military resumes and I couldn't write them. And that's when
Right.
I realized that this is a space that needs help, because I am in there is a military in my background. I understand military appointments, but still I could not put those details together because I had no clue at all. And that's when it struck me that global resumes are fine, but I should be doing something for my own fraternity. And since I have the knack of writing resumes, how about trying military resumes? So I wrote
Yeah.
a couple of them, and later in life, when I thought that I'm doing better now, I went back to those folks and asked them, can you give me one more chance to rewrite your resumes? And I rewrote the resumes, and now they're well placed in the corporates. But that's how writing military resumes it started, because I thought I could add value to the
Yeah.
fraternity.
That's really good. Are they much different, the kind of the military resume versus the leadership resume?
Actually, military resumes have their own terminologies because the
Okay.
experiences are different. So the jargons will be there, and these jargons will be something that recruiters will not understand.
Yeah.
And like if I were to say a quartermaster is a logistics guy. So if you were to write quartermaster in the resume, they will not understand unless you write a
Right.
logistics manager. So
Yeah.
translation and strategy for you do a lot of things under one umbrella in the military, but outside in the corporate, it's more about one skill. and one
Yeah.
domain. So how do you target your resume to that domain and not write everything that you've done is what one of the strategies, and it is quite different. And for the corporate leadership roles, I feel that people do have the resumes together, but it's not highlighting their abilities and the achievements so far. So they will have a whole lot of content there, but really no meat. So that's when I
Yeah.
felt that, instead of, so to be honest, add as a entry level position, resumes can work well no matter how they're written.
Yeah.
At a mid senior level, they're still okay, but at a leadership level, you need something that the person would take in their hands and feel that, oh wow, what achievements. And that is something that I felt was missing for leadership resumes. So that's how
Yeah.
military and corporate resumes I combine together, and it kind of helps me to stay in line with what the corporates are looking and what the military experiences are. So to if I were to only just write military resumes, then probably I leave a hang of what corporate resumes should look like. So to match the
Yeah.
both the I think that's how I keep writing.
Yeah. That's really good. And then I guess you've got people moving out of the military into corporate life, perhaps. So you need to do almost a translation there, I guess.
That's true. So military jargons and strategy as to what they were doing and how that
Mm.
applies to a corporate role is something that I research. And then soft skills, how did the transferable skill come up on the resume is one strategy that I apply.
Yeah.
And then I tell them that every time you apply for a particular role, tweak that resume, because without tweaking, you can't be applying to 1,000
Yes.
applications and without looking at what the job description is saying, especially
Excellent.
when you're
Yeah.
transitioning, because that's absolutely a different field that you're targeting.
Yeah, yeah, so true, so true. I see we've got a question coming in from Jeff. So he said, Varsha, you have moved around so much. Has that presented any special challenges?
Oh, yes, Jeff, absolutely. And let me just also pull that up that Jeff is one person I've learned so much LinkedIn from, and I call him my guru because everything out and about LinkedIn is courtesy him that I know today. He's helped me a lot. And the
Oh, that's
first
really good.
challenge that is, yeah, the first challenge, so to say, is that flexibility is one thing that, you can't be flexible all the time. So I am like 40 plus today, and being flexible, like moving every 2 years, is difficult in itself. The setup that you see right now is not mine. So this is one adjustment that I've made for today. So apart from the setup, and everything changes. The city changes, people change, friends
Yeah,
also, to really make efforts to be friends with who you're friends with. So
yeah,
there are whole lot of challenges. But yeah, the lovely thing is that you never get bored, and you always have new stuff to do.
yes, yeah. So what was it then? So you did quite a lot of work as a freelance resume writer, didn't you? And then you switched to being a solopreneur. So um, I guess what's the difference for people that don't know that, and how did you decide to kind of make that move?
So when I was freelancing, I was freelancing with an organization who places military veterans, and I wrote resumes with them. Eventually, I realized that with the life that we have, that we move so often, and a little one that I have, and the little one might just barge in. So so I decided that I have to do something that matches pace with my kind of lifestyle that I have.
Yeah,
And so that's when, after writing a lot of military resumes, I felt confident that I can do it all by myself.
yeah,
And courtesy LinkedIn that I worked. So when COVID happened, that's when I started working on my LinkedIn profile. Followed a lot of people, and that's when I connected with Jeff also.
yeah,
And followed a lot of people who I could learn with. The first piece of content was written after, I think, after 3, 4 months of following people all over the place on LinkedIn, that who's doing what and what's happening in the resume writing space, and
mm,
a lot of research that I did. So research that I did not do when I was in college, I did that research during COVID.
yes, yeah,
And that's how I built my brand on LinkedIn. And thankfully the brand went well. And a lot of people who come to me today tell me that your profile looks so nice. And it's a lot of hard work that has gone into it. And all of the stuff that I'm saying today is all there in my about section also. And so that's how it happened. And being a solopreneur, most of my work comes from LinkedIn, and then it's word of mouth. So I love
Yes.
when people come back to me saying that, initially when you wrote my resume, I cracked an great offer, and now I'm looking at another jump, and can you redo my resume? That's the loveliest thing to hear.
Yeah, I agree. That's really nice when you get people coming back because they know that you can do it, don't they? And it's nice to see people's careers progressing as well, I think.
It's true. Because there's
And
no
I
point
think
of writing a resume if the resume is not helping. And the most help that a resume can do is that take you till the interview. After that, you can crack the deal on your own. And but till the time you get there, the resume is an important tool. And if that works well and conversions happen, that's the loveliest thing for a resume writer to hear.
yeah, it's true. So Jeff's added another comment. So he's saying you're a great student, Varsha, but also a great teacher of others. That's
Thank you,
lovely.
Jen. Very kind of him.
Yeah, and I think what you were just saying goes back to the preparation, doesn't it? So you spent that time on LinkedIn watching other people, learning other people, and it wasn't until 3 or 4 months later that you posted, and that kind of goes back to how you did your interviews, doesn't it? Later on you knew that you needed to prepare, so you spent the time doing that. And as you say, preparation is so important.
That's true. So I
And you got
learn from profile, learn from other people's content, and
yes,
in the space. So it's not like I connected to everybody in the world. So there are so many professionals there on LinkedIn. But find your stream. Where exactly do you want to go, and find people in that space to learn better.
yeah, that's true. And you were awarded the LinkedIn Top Voice in 2022 and again in 2024.
Thank you. Yes, that's a great reminder that if you do your research well, it does pay off. And when it happened for the first time in 2020, it came out as a surprise for me also, because I had just
Mm,
started. And because my content comes from, I think my content comes from authenticity, because I felt every time that I speak to a person and I realize that there is a lack of awareness in the military space. The most eminent problem is that the lack of awareness, because the worlds are absolutely different. The corporate space and military environment are two totally different environment. And
yeah.
every time that I speak to people, there is a lot of the conversation happens around a lot of knowledge sharing, gaining, me understanding, them understanding. So the content comes from there, and that's what my content has all been about. And it's mostly text content, so people usually will talk a lot about what form of content, but I think
Mm,
it's the form of content that is the real you and what you're comfortable with. As long as your audience is comfortable with what you're putting out, I think that is what it's all about. And my two badges are a proof of that.
yeah, no, it's really good, isn't it? Yeah, and yeah, they're hard to get those badges, so it's really well done that you've had two separate notifications of it. It's really good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've talked about military and leadership resumes. So the next thing I wanted to ask you about is values. So everyone I've had on so far has talked about their values when they're looking for work. So do you think your personal values have an impact on your work or who you'll work with, that kind of thing?
Yes, because of the background that I have, the military environment, the discipline, the integrity, the ethics, and punctuality, and all of that. And I think that in real life, I'm driven by authenticity. So see, if I wrote a message to you because I found you so authentic and real with all
Mm,
that you were saying, and in that podcast and live, I think it was. So I'm driven by authenticity. Anything and everything about me is authenticity. And there are times that I feel that people have paid additional amount for the work that they're trying to get from me, and I refund that money because I don't need additional money.
mm,
So that is, and people love that about. So many people have come back to me saying that I loved it in this era. You're sending the money back is like a big thing, because it's all about authenticity. Where will I go with that all extra money? So authenticity is dear to me.
yeah, that's really nice. So you mentioned that you got quite a lot of your clients from LinkedIn. So are they people that find you, or do you kind of, I don't know, do you join groups to target people or anything like that?
So mostly people who've come to me are either
Yeah.
referrals, and even if those are referrals, they write to me on LinkedIn. And people, I'll say 40% of people have found me on LinkedIn, and I thank them when they tell me that we found you when we were
Mm,
searching for a resume writer, because that means my headline and everything in my profile is working well. for the
Yes.
SEO engine to be able to find me for the requirements. And again, I like to mention Jeff because he told me how to go about my headline and details and
Yes.
everything, and do a control F on your profile and see that the keywords are there or not, and how many times the keywords are appearing on your profile for you to be found. So mostly it is LinkedIn. Primarily it is LinkedIn that I get my work from, and otherwise
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah. That's good. And do you help people with their LinkedIn profiles as well as part of your work?
Yes, I do. Because in the military, you're not so in India. Serving military professions are not allowed in on LinkedIn on social media.
Right.
And
Okay.
if they have to come on LinkedIn, they have to take a permission. And once they take a permission, is when they come on LinkedIn. So when you're coming on LinkedIn that late, you don't know what's the latest and how should you go about, preparing your profile and putting up details on your profile. So that's how I thought
Yes.
I should also be doing LinkedIn profiles for people, so that I at least give them 100% complete profile, and then they can go about, utilizing it for their transition.
Yeah, that's good. And how do people tend to react to LinkedIn when they've not seen it before?
That brings me to workshops that I've taken for veterans, and I've also taken a workshop with LinkedIn itself for as a community workshop for veterans. And
Yeah.
the idea, they don't really understand the difference between what a social media profile versus LinkedIn is, and really have to,
Right.
that awareness is setting in now that LinkedIn is a totally professional platform and very different from what Instagram and Facebook is. And it takes awareness and people talking about it. And yeah, so it does sink in. And there have been people who told me that I'm coming after 30 years of service in the military, I know nothing about LinkedIn. And that person himself now is such a celebrity on LinkedIn, I can't explain. And it makes me, I'm full when I look at his profile with the things that he's posted and how he's been recognized for his skill. And it's
Oh,
just
wow.
because he's writing content on LinkedIn about his expertise, and he's all over
Yeah,
the place for his skill. So that is
that's
the magic
brilliant.
that LinkedIn can do to your career profile.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, well, I always ask my guests for advice. So, have you got any advice for people that are about to leave school or college or university and how to get started in their career? So, based on your experience, I guess.
I've already mentioned it though, but do your research right. So when
Yes.
you're in school and college, you have the world ahead of you. Take your time to take your decision, do your research, ask people around, make sure that you're asking the right source. Because advice is easy, it's cheap. You can ask anybody and you'll get loads of advice. But be careful of the source that you're asking. And there are so many career coaches, skilled expertise that is available today that was missing in that era when I did my graduation and schooling. But today there's plethora of help that is available. Asking for help is empowerment. So you
Yeah.
must ask and seek information and then go about it. And likewise for your transition, when you're transitioning, there is an inbuilt in you have a feeling that this is something that I want to do, but whether it applies, it doesn't apply, what opportunities that the corporate space has for that domain, what upskilling, what all can you do about that domain, and how should you prepare for your transition is something that you should definitely do. And ask more questions. Ask If
Yeah.
you ask questions, that's when you get answers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's probably hard for younger people to have the confidence to ask. But like you say, if you don't ask, you don't know, do you? And actually, a really good example with my son at the moment, he's at music college, and he asked the bassist of his favourite band if he could have a 15-minute call with him, and he said yes. So he's on that actually right now. So just think, wow. So if a rock star can give up their time, then I'm sure most people can.
And most of the people that you ask, like I asked so many people in my space, and nobody ever said that you remove my competition, I will not help you. Nobody does that. So
No,
everybody
no,
that I approach, they help me. And today, if somebody was to ask me, I answer all questions. Knowledge is to share. What will I do with keeping that knowledge within? Knowledge to share, and share as much as you can. And that's all
yeah.
that my content also does. It's about knowledge sharing.
Knowledge, yeah, perfect. Okay, so last question then, and that's another advice question. So, any advice for people who want to leave the corporate world and go freelance or solopreneur like you have?
Like again, do your research well, that wherever you want to head, do you have enough opportunities, and be ready to take that risk if you really have to. Because if I look at my career, I really took that risk. I started really low. So initially, it wasn't like a daydreaming thing, and it was a princess story, nothing like that. I did
Mhm.
my hard work to come to where I am today. So it does take time. Keep your patience, and keep your mind in the right direction. It's really easy to get low and think that others are doing better than me, but
Yeah,
to really keep that in your head that you're moving in the right direction, and yeah, do your research well.
excellent.
And
Thank
I
you.
need to mention that in one of the organizations, I was also laid off. So once in my lifetime, I was also laid off, and
Yeah,
today, at that point in time, I did sulk. But today, I feel that the layoff was right because I wasn't meant for that role. All that I learned from that role was presentation skills, which
yeah,
really I get up. So when we were to present a QBR, a quarterly business review, I was more worried about the content and the presentation than what really we did achieve. So
yeah,
I was a misfit totally. And later I became friends with the person who asked me to leave. So it's layoff is, I feel that it's not personal, it's more professional. And after you're laid off, instead of sulking about it, think that, why did you get laid off and what can you do about it?
yeah,
And there'll always be better people than you, but that doesn't make you any bad either. So it's
yeah,
probably some other skill set that you should be taking up, like I did from operations to client services and to resume writing today. It's totally different. So yeah,
yeah,
do your
yeah.
research
No,
well
that's
before
great.
taking the plunge. That's all.
Yeah, very good. So Jeff said, great session today. It was great, so great of our share experience. So yeah, I agree. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for commenting as you have been. So yeah, we are about out of time. So thank you again to Varsha for joining me today. Thank you, Jeff, for all your comments and questions. And as I said at the beginning, if anyone's got any questions they're watching on catch up, please do add them and we will go back and answer later on. So I am back next Thursday, the 18th at 1 o'clock. I'll be talking to Neil Smith, who is a retailer and buyer in the outdoor leisure industry and also a freelance writer. And he has got lots and lots of really random stories to tell. So I'm very much looking forward to that one as well. Okay, so as I said, thank you, Varsha, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much.